This morning, let's get some more detail with Chris Roebuck, who is a banking analyst. He joins me now from the business unit. Chris, afternoon to you.
Afternoon.
Give us a sense of what you make of these figures, because as I was touching on with Simon, you know, the cut's much deeper than we thought, but this is a part of a wider strategy, one that will streamline the bank.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Certainly HSBC over the last few years has gone through a number of quote-unquote restructurings. But as you said earlier, Ben, it's absolutely critical to understand the size of this institution. 50 countries, 230,000 people. And 90% of its profit comes from Asia. So what they've got to do is they've got to look at where they make the money. Now, in any organisation that size, over a period of years, costs start creeping in. It's about efficiency. And the problem that they have is even with previous so-called restructurings, they haven't really pulled out the costs that they should have pulled out. And that's why they have to take such drastic action now.
And when we talk about, streamlining this business, given the scale of it, it's hard to underestimate how difficult this could be. We're talking about huge numbers of staff here.
Yeah.
And of course, they've only got an interim chief executive at the moment. So the new person, whoever that may be, appointed in 6 to 12 months, has a pretty big job on their hands to try and see this through.
Well, I think you can make the argument that Mr. Quinn himself, as an interim for 6 months, has a difficult job as well. Because unless he's confirmed, people will be sitting there saying, oh, well, let's not worry about what he says because he's off in 6 months. So he has a challenge. And if they're going to keep him, they need to announce it fairly soon. But your comments are absolutely right. HSBC is looking at its role within the investment banking world. What of the investment banking products and activities do we really want to retain effectively as a global retail bank? Because we're not an investment bank, not a Morgan Stanley, not a Goldman Sachs. So there's a question there about what they're going to do. There's also the question about can they reduce their level of service in Europe? Because Europe isn't making as much money as Asia. And in their recently sort of expanded over the last 10, 15 years retail arm in the States, there's a question about how can we utilize technology there to also help us save money. And having been around since 1865, they have assets around the world and they could sell off some of those. So, there is a question about how we get more money in and how we become more efficient. But that's not just a financial question. That's a leadership question in terms of how the senior leaders in the bank get this across to the people in the bank.
And just a word on that, to use their language, that pivot to Asia, that idea that Asia is where it will make all its money. I mean, the timing could not be worse in that sense, given the impact of coronavirus, when we're expecting some pretty dramatic figures for a slowdown in China and in wider Asian markets. That could be a problem for them.
Well, I mean, the benefit for HSBC, the great thing is it's global yet local, but the bad thing is that it's global yet local, to use its own strapline. And we don't know what's going to happen in Asia with coronavirus. If it really gets a grip, it's going to reduce economic activity out there, and that could impact HSBC's profitability. But also think about the HSBC staff out there, that could impact them as well. So Mr. Quinn and the board really have to get a grip of this to make sure everybody in the bank knows where that bank is going, wants to take it there, and is looking for efficiency and effectively an entrepreneurial mindset to make this bank go up a gear.
One to watch. Chris, thank you. Yeah. Good to see you. Chris Roebuck there, banking analyst on the fortunes for HSBC. So quite a lot of work on whoever does take over there.